Hello, folks. It's Ken Drysdale and Chris Riddell again with Jason Garrett. And this is a bit of an unusual episode of What That Means Is. And what that means is, if this is your first time watching, this is the show where we take a look at current events, we take a look at what's going on with the government in Canada, and we present facts and figures to you and statistics. And this whole show came out of the 89-page investigative report that you can download at thetruefactsc19.com. But you know, we did an episode just a little while ago, and to you it may have been weeks ago already, but to us, you know, we film a few of the episodes in an afternoon, and you know, during a break, we were just saying that we have an interesting opportunity here because we have two retired police officers here, and we thought that, like you, I've been wondering for quite some time now exactly what happened in Canada. What happened with the protective services? You know, how did we get to the point where we have a force that is highly respected by most Canadians, that is empowered to protect us, is empowered to protect our rights, and have the power to temporarily take away those rights, which is tremendous power. You know, a police officer carries a gun, for goodness sake. You know, a taser too, I guess, nowadays, and everything else. And we entrust them with an incredible power. And to my mind, with power comes great responsibility. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, having observed what happened at the convoy a few years ago in Ottawa, having seen the non-response of the RCMP, having watched what happened with Brenda Lucki when she was before a Commons committee talking about the gun confiscations, and didn't even know what a PAL
and
was.
As the head of the firearms program in Canada, presumably you understand that without a PAL, either restricted or non-restricted, in any way that perpetrator is in possession of firearms, it's a criminal offense.
Yes.
And to the extent that he acquires ammunition is a criminal offense.
Yes.
And to the extent that any license holder knowingly assists him in acquiring the materials used as part of his
I have to say I don't know those laws intimately. I know that there are obviously illegalities when you don't have the proper licensing. I know that.
Of course, she's stepped down now. But I think with this opportunity, having two seasoned police officers, ex-retired police officers, we could have this discussion with that. So, what happened, guys? What happened with the police? How did we get to the point where we had Toronto police officers on a horse trampling old ladies? We had the Quebec police force in Ottawa beating people and gassing them when they were unarmed and they were nonviolent. I know you two guys, and I know your stories, and I know why you became police officers, and I've wanted to ask this question, and I'm sitting here, by the way, folks, with no small peril. These are both guys bigger than me, and there's two of them, so I'm asking a pretty hard question. So, what happened?
I guess part of it is a police force is a paramilitary organization. And you are given orders. Okay, now my understanding always was that if those orders weren't illegal, immoral, or unethical, you were to follow through with them. So where do you draw that line when they're telling you that the truckers are a fringe minority, that they're terrorists, there
may be weapons there?
They're building up a mandate against those truckers, and that's what is being fed to those officers, perhaps. I wasn't in the briefings, but I've been in briefings where, you know, and then...
The defendant, Friedrich Hofstadter, may address the tribunal.
I have served my country throughout my life, and in whatever position I was assigned to, in faithfulness, with a pure heart and without malice. I followed the concept that I believe to be the highest in my profession. The concept that says to sacrifice one's own sense of justice to the authoritative legal order, to ask only what the law is, and not to ask whether or not it is also justice. As a judge, I could do no other. I believe your honors will find me, and millions of Germans like me who believed they were doing their duty to their country, to be not guilty.
And I have to tell you, I wasn't in Ottawa, but I watched it when that horse trampled, and I can tell you, I thank God I wasn't there.
Yeah.
Because that cop would have been coming off that horse.
Well, you know,
It just it instilled true, and I'm getting the shivers right now, but it just instilled such a rage in me. And we talk about the potential for violence, right? Well, to me, that was, and we've all heard afterwards that, okay, they were members of the UN, they weren't regular police, they were this and that, but when you put that uniform on sometimes, you're expected to literally be a robot, to take that humanity out of you. And I know that speaking to some of the people that were on the front lines there, they were making eye contact with the police, and they could see, like, and you said they were standing there just trying to not bring the humanity back into it, the emotion, right? And so I don't know what happens, whether it's just they're brainwashed, they're told this is what they're going to do, this is what to expect, and then.
well, you know, you mentioned and referred back about the police who trampled that lady with the horses. They were Toronto police, by
Right.
the way,
Yeah.
Toronto police units. And subsequent to that, to make matters worse, a whistleblower leaked the texts that the RCMP members were having about how they wanted to be there and so on and so forth.
Right.
And my question is, where's the investigation into that?
Ooh, boy.
Where is the investigation? And you know, I have to tell you, I went looking for that investigation a while ago, and I couldn't find anything. But I'll tell you what I found. And I wish my memory was a little bit better. But with this color of hair, sometimes your memory is not as good as
Silver, you've earned it.
Goes with
Yeah.
the hair color.
But you know,
Sorry, Jay.
when I was looking for what happened with the investigation into the RCMP for having said what they said, and I'll remind you on the screen here about some of the things that were said and what was texted back and forth. But yeah, I found something else instead. There was an incident on the East Coast in 2007. There were some protests going on. The RCMP responded to it. And the RCMP were under great criticism for responding to it the way they did, and they commissioned an inquiry. The government commissioned an inquiry from 2007. You know what? That investigation was completed last year.
Ooh.
In 2022. And there were a whole bunch of recommendations that were made. One of the reasons it took so long is the RCMP nixed a whole bunch of the recommendations and got them taken out of the report. And then even with the recommendations remaining in the report, the RCMP said, we'll do that one. Yeah, we're not going to do that one. What the heck?
Yeah.
Is that part of it? Where I'm not just talking about I'm not talking about the police officer on the line, but is the administration of our police forces, and I'm thinking particularly our RCMP, and neither of you were RCMP officers,
No.
but are we so to the point where they don't care anymore? You know, that when an investigation takes, I got to do the arithmetic here, 15 years to complete, and the RCMP ignore the recommendations, where the chief RCMP officer, Brenda Lucky, doesn't know what a PAL was. Now, I'm not expecting her to know every law, but she knew she was coming to testify on gun laws. You'd think they would have gotten somebody to brief her. But she admitted she didn't know it.
Wow.
So what in the heck, what in the heck was she doing going there without a briefing? And so part of my question is and we're going to get into both sides of this, there's the mindset of the officer on the line that I would like to try to understand a little bit. But a lot of times they say that an organization takes on the characteristics of leadership. And when you have leadership that's incompetent, in my opinion, who are politically motivated, who frankly should never have been in the job, in my opinion, thinking of our chief of RCMP. You know, and this came home to me a little bit last September when we did a demonstration, or a gathering, we called it, at the RCMP headquarters in Winnipeg. We had previous to that, we had sent registered letters to to the RCMP and the Winnipeg Police, and the RCMP in Manitoba had received the report dozens of times, and their response to us was zero. But the response to us following up was they never saw the report before. They didn't know what it was. We have registered letters. We have registered mail. So with all of that, and I'll shut up because I've been accused of talking too much, talking about the mindset of the officer on the line, and you talked about, you know, you're being told certain things, but you're there witnessing bouncy castles and children, and then I want to also talk about the leadership a little bit, if you can.
Well, and I think part of it is, like I said, with you, when you're given an order to go out there, and this is what you're told to do. Okay, today we're going to break these lines down. Okay, now those people are, maybe they're younger officers, a little more naive, just following orders. They've also, that's their livelihood. That's how they're paying the bills too. So if they disregard that order, and it's a double-edged sword, because if we fail to comply with an order of a superior, we can be charged internally. And that's a whole nut, you suspended without pay. The whole deal for ignoring or refusing to take that order, right? So they're really in between a true rock and a hard place.
But that's only if one of you tries to do it.
Right, and I had heard, because I've become friends with many people that were there, that there was several officers there that actually turned and tried to, and their own officers pulled them aside, and they've been
Is that
either
right?
reprimanded or charged or whatever.
They
because,
were removed from the front
yeah,
line.
yeah, absolutely. So
Yeah.
there was, and we know that we've now learned that whether it was the United Nations, we've now heard that there may have been military people flown in from the Ukraine, military.
Well, I've heard many of those things, and I identified the officers, like generally speaking, and I was told that they were the Surti from Quebec.
Well,
yeah,
see,
Surete
there was
Quebec.
that rumor,
Yeah.
the Surti de
Well,
Quebec.
they were there.
Yeah.
That
Yes.
was the green outfits.
Yeah.
Right. But there was
There
the
was
outfits in
Surete
black
Quebec.
that had no epaulets, no
Yeah.
markings.
Yeah.
They claimed that those were, now they're saying that they may have even been brought in from the Ukraine.
And that's illegal.
Missionaries.
But that's illegal.
Yes.
Yeah.
But under United Nations, if they're flown in under the UN to help Canada, these are all unprecedented things, but this is some of the information that's coming out. Because I know, as a police officer, and I was there a long time, to look at those people on the other side of the line and actually use force against them, wow.
My feeling on that is that it goes back to what we've discussed on several episodes of this webcast, is the information. Whoever has the information, who's ever spreading the information, has got a lot of the control. And we see that now. I mean, we woke up to that in the last 3 years especially. So if these people know, I mean, I saw those texts, the young RCMP officers talking about, yeah, they should feel our jackboots.
Yep.
What the hell have you been told, buddy, that you think you should be stomping these people? So there to me is the information that guy was told about who the enemy is out there. I would like to know what he was told
Yeah.
about who the enemy is. And we've all been there. I've gone on search warrants. I've done investigations, and for some reason there's a real comments are made that, oh, there's more to this than just there's a gun here, a bomb here, or drugs here, or whatever. And it's the manipulation of the information again. And the person giving it is in power. Let's look what happened. First thing they did, first thing that the globalists did in this whole world is take over the media.
Yes.
Well, they've done that over a long time ago,
Right.
but there's no journalism. We've discussed that. So they've taken over the control of the information. And when we're trying to talk to the executive assistant at the Winnipeg Police, I'm trying to get him to start investigation with this report. I know the guy. I'm not going to name him. We worked together on the same shift when he started. I was quite a bit older than him. And there's obviously a bigger something going on than just him deciding Yeah, you know what, Chris? I've read the report. Really well done. But we're not going to do anything. You know?
Well, you talked about it's the way they make their livelihood and whatnot. You know what? I'll tell you something. If I go to work in the morning and I'm running a bulldozer, and society expects a certain something from me, or driving that bulldozer, I have a certain responsibility related to being a bulldozer driver, or a taxi cab driver, or a chef. But police are special. To me, the excuse or the reasoning that, well, that's how they make their living and they didn't want to lose their pension. Police officers carry guns in our society. The same society that our government is trying to take away every kind of firearm, including hunting rifles and whatnot. We live out in the country, and frankly, we need them for protection. They carry guns. They have the legal right to remove your civil rights and incarcerate you until a hearing, supposedly.
Yep.
Although that's no longer in this country, because there's how many people out of Alberta who are still in jail a year and somewhat later?
Including
And-
the two
and-
pastors and
These two
absolutely.
pastors?
And that was only supposed to be with reasonable and probable grounds.
Yes.
So my question always was, when I was watching the same thing you were watching, where's the reasonable and probable grounds? Where's the threat here?
Yeah.
Yes.
They're actually political prisoners, in my opinion.
Well, that's a good point.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
They-
the
for
Coots.
political reasons, they have been
Yeah.
apprehended. I don't care if you're talking about the 4 guys from Coots that are still in, and there's a whole other thing coming about that, about planting evidence and firearms and all the rest
Oh,
of
and
it.
destroying private property
Yes.
by cutting fuel lines
Yes.
and putting foam in them.
Yep,
Yeah.
absolutely. So there's another whole ball of wax coming out of that,
Yes.
right? So, but yeah, in my opinion, they're political prisoners. Because if we're in a free country, you are allowed due process.
So are
There's a Bail Reform Act. There's reasons. What about calling a lawyer? Why aren't the lawyers? The lawyers are part of the problem.
Oh yeah, because they're afraid. The lawyers are afraid. We talked about this in previous episodes. The evil or the rot has penetrated to every level.
Corruption. Call it corruption.
Corruption. It's in the schools.
Yeah.
It's in the professional organizations. The doctors are afraid to speak up because they were
Because
going to
they've
get
been
fired.
threatened and coerced.
I've
right?
been
Yes.
threatened by my professional organization for speaking up.
Mhm.
What the heck is that about, folks? I'm still waiting on a ruling there. That's 3 months down the line already. You have pharmacists who are countermanding doctors' orders. Most folks don't know this, but the criteria for evaluating a COVID case came from the WHO. They adopted that. I can't remember what the protocol's called, Protocol 3 or Protocol 5 or something. How is that preserving Canada's sovereignty? But you said that those people, those 8 or 4 people in Alberta who are still in jail, are political prisoners. Are the police themselves political prisoners right now?
I would certainly think that they're being used as pawns.
Yeah.
In this game of yeah, absolutely.
Well, let me ask you another question. When you both were officers, or active duty officers, and you'd go to a crime scene, and it could have been let's call it a murder. It could have been a murder, might not have been a murder. Did you, as a frontline police officer, make a decision whether that was a murder or not a murder? You found somebody dead in an apartment. You didn't make that decision. You had to fill out a report, and other people came in.
You
and did an
started
investigation.
it based on your initial observation of the scene.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We would involve the medical examiner and then call in specialty units, right?
Right.
So it was a
Yeah,
a
exactly.
conglomerate of information.
You're right, and it's based at the time. It's based on what you see and what your experience is, and how you interpret a thing. Everybody has biases and different experiences. But let me take that question a little bit further. So you come into a scene, maybe a homicide, maybe isn't a homicide, and let's say it's ruled it's not a homicide, right?
Yeah.
And to the best of your knowledge, at that time you walked away because whoever the powers that be were ruled it was not a homicide. You're a police officer on the line. A year later, you come across credible information that it was a murder. And maybe it was a high up official in the government who did that murder. What's your obligation as a police officer?
And that's exactly what I think is happening. is
Reopen
yeah,
the case.
And are they, to our knowledge?
Not yet.
Not yet.
No. And that's where you're asking them to investigate their boss.
Yeah.
Who pays the paycheck, right?
Yeah.
And these are, again, it's unprecedented. Like, we've never had this situation where, right?
But we all face that, folks.
Yeah.
I'm a retired engineer, and I faced that,
Right.
and got a lot of blowback. You know, got police phoning me.
I think it comes down to
And-
yeah.
integrity and character of the individual and how far they're willing to push that.
So let me ask you another question, because folks may not have saw the last episode. You were asked, or you guys discussed, about how many officers in the Winnipeg Police Service that you saw that at the time this was happening rebelled against it, and it was a very small portion. I think you said there was 1,600 officers. And how many?
About 7%, something somewhere in there.
About
Yeah.
100 out of 60.
About 100 out of 1,600.
Yeah. Yeah. Because even though they're police, they want to trust. They want to believe that they're not being misled,
What about now?
right? Well, I'm hoping that they're starting to turn around,
How can they not?
you know?
How can they not when they've been lied to?
Well, you know, we've looked into a lot of aspects of this. And, you know, we talked in our last episode, we were talking about this new grassroots movement that we're involved with, the CATSEs. If you haven't seen that, take a look at the episode about CATSEs. And, you know, I think about a whole lot of things about this. And I think about an episode we did about trying to hold people accountable with the CATSEs. But I look at what happened in all of, my wife always tells me, Rosalie always tells me never to use the word all, never, always. And then I always say, well, I'll never leave you, darling, and I always love you. But, you know, when I look around at the leadership in these things, and I look at somebody like Brenda Lucky, completely incompetent, didn't have the experience, doesn't have the resume, and she's leading arguably the premier police force in Canada, or at least in a lot of citizens' minds, the premier police force. We have Dr. Teresa Tam, who we've done an episode on. You know, folks, we went looking for her resume. And what we found out about her was shocking, completely incompetent, no experience. You know, was trained as a pediatrician and only graduated in, I think it was 2006 or something.
Yeah.
And then 4 or 5 years later, there's no information between that and 4 or 5 years. She's an expert in epidemiology.
Well, and I believe they're handpicking those types of individuals for that purpose, for that reason.
That's right.
That they can be manipulated, that
Yeah.
that they are going to continue the mandate, the propaganda that
Yeah.
they're asking them to, right?
I mean, it's on all levels.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You got a prime minister who never had a real job.
No.
Oh, absolutely.
You have a deputy prime minister that was some kind of a reporter and then worked for the WEF.
Still does.
You've
Still
got,
does.
yeah, still does. I mean, you can go through all of the leadership, and it's not funny.
No.
It's not funny, folks. And so, you know, we were talking about the police, but when you look at all these other organizations who are doing all these insane things, like the Medical Association, in my opinion, you'll never recover from this. We have to tear that down and rebuild it, like the regulatory side of it.
Yep.
And maybe proper civilian oversight is required. They're same as with the police. They have civilian oversight, but it's all
Right.
appointed by the mayor or whatever else.
Yeah, well, we do have the police board now, which wasn't around when you were there, right?
No.
But,
Yeah.
you know, I'll give you another example. Like this ring that I bought myself is my retirement ring, okay?
Yeah.
So, I don't know if you recall, but our previous mayor decided to arbitrarily attack the police pension. He wanted to change it outside of our union negotiated contract.
Yes.
So, and he's a former lawyer, or is a lawyer still, I guess. So he knows the law that you just can't do these things, and he was told that, but he pushed that mandate anyways. So our union took them to court. They sat before an arbitrator, and the arbitrator said, yeah, you're right, you can't do that. So not only did he have to pay costs and all of that out of the taxpayers' money,
Yes.
then we each as individuals of the union received, I think it was $375 for pain and suffering. So I ended up buying my retirement ring with that money, but it's across the board that people, they just do this and there's no repercussions.
Yeah.
And it's because they're politically elected, right?
Yes.
And into those positions. And I think that's what happens with the police is our chief is politically elected, like he's right.
Political appointee.
So he is separate from the service.
Yes.
Now he's supposed to be a buffer, right? And that's what the police board was supposed to do. But we know that they've been infiltrated. We know that money talks.
Yes.
And right, so that
Well, part of you preventing somebody from doing something bad, nowadays it's education. We got to spend more money on education. Okay, well, we see how that went. There's a whole bunch of different parts to law enforcement. One is punishment. One is rehabilitation, however that works or does
but
not.
see,
work.
that's not part of law enforcement.
No, it's not.
That's the courts.
That's correct.
And I've had people say to me, "How did you arrested that guy 5 times for break-ins and he keeps getting a slap on the wrist?" I says, "No, my job is to complete a thorough and
Yes.
investigation, get him to the courts. What happens after that is out of my hands. I just do the best job I can,
Yeah.
right?"
And I agree
Yeah.
with that. But where I was going with that is, in law, there is an action, and if it's illegal and you get convicted of it, there's some kind of a punishment, whatever that punishment might be.
Yep.
Maybe it's you got to stand in the corner, like I spent most of my elementary school in the corner.
A
Maybe,
repercussion for your actions.
yeah, there's a
Yeah.
but the problem is that with these boards, with these judges, with these lawyers, with these mayors, there's no repercussions. When a judge rules the wrong way, the worst thing that can happen to them so far I've seen is they get under appeal, they get overturned. But nobody says, wait a minute,
Yeah.
you let out somebody that killed 12 people.
Yeah, there's no accountability.
There's no accountability.
Like the mayor, that money that was paid to us was taxpayer money.
Yes,
And he should have known you just can't arbitrarily do that,
exactly.
right? But he did it anyways. And then it cost the taxpayer.
Right.
Yeah.
But it shouldn't have. It should have.
Right.
It should have cost the mayor.
Right.
It's just like what's going on in Ottawa right now. You have scandal after scandal. You have the whole vacation scandal and the commissioner of whatever it's called, SIN or whatever it's called in Ottawa, ethics commissioner. In my
Same
opinion,
thing.
doesn't have any
Same
ethics.
thing.
Ruled it was an ethics violation. So what happened? Nothing.
Nothing.
SNC Lavalin. Our first in Canada female First Nations Attorney General was fired, and she was right. And the ethics commissioner said, no, but nothing happened. We have the WE scandal.
Yeah.
Where Trudeau was asked, how much money did your family make on this? And he said, well, I don't have to report what my mother made. But in my family, of course, he's just him and his wife, and I don't think she's in his family anymore. But nonetheless, nothing happened, folks. What was the latest scandal where he got ethics commissioner said, "Oh, you've done it wrong," and there was no accountability. Oh, it just
the
goes on.
Chinese election.
The Chinese election.
But also he's part owner in the MNRA, the company in
Yeah.
British Columbia, right?
Right.
And didn't Pierre Polivet they announced that his wife, we wondered
Yeah.
where his money came from, but
Yeah.
anyways, his wife
Worked
is
for
is
Switch,
all,
Switch Healthcare or something.
yeah,
Yeah, and I
the latest thing. So they're all
folks.
in bed with each other.
Yeah. So but when there's no accountability, there's accountability for us.
Over the top accountability.
Yes, absolutely. And when you put in completely incompetent puppets,
And that's what they are.
Yeah.
That's how they've been put there.
I mean, we've gone through, and this whole discussion has evolved, right? We started talking about because I thought, folks, that we had a golden opportunity with 2 retired police officers' experience. I mean, there's sitting here next to me is over 50 years of policing experience, and I thought we would talk about that and would get some insights, and we did. But it's interesting how that evolved.
It is.
It's all
It is.
interconnected.
It is. It is.
It's a playbook for sure.
Yeah.
There's no question because there's nothing proving it's not. There's not even a defense that it's not.
No.
Other than our MP telling us that the World Economic Forum, that's just a business club. Don't
It's
worry
a
about it.
Lions
He
Club.
said they're just a forum.
It's just a business club.
He
Just a
said
forum.
in the previous one,
Yeah.
I'm a member of the Lions Club.
Same
It's the
thing.
same
Yeah.
thing.
Same thing.
Anyway,
Anyway.
it was an interesting conversation. Thank you,
Yeah.
guys. And I guess with that, I hope we've given you some things to think about. And again, in the ribbon is our email address. Feel free to get a hold of us. So signing off, Ken Drysdale.
Jason Garrett.
Chris Riddell, thank you.
Thanks, everybody.